Hello, this is Marvin McKenzie. I'm the pastor of Bible Baptist Church in Puyallup, Washington. And I'm coming today to give you my daily visit with God, verses like that. And today I saw something that was that kind of intrigued me. So here's a scenario. King David in the Old Testament, King David has taken a break. His men are at war, and rather than going to battle, in those days the king would always lead his men into battle. But instead of going into battle, leading his men in battle like he would have normally done, he stayed home. And while he was home, he saw Bathsheba, he got tempted, and the rest, as they say, is history. A baby was conceived in order to hide that sin. David ordered for Bathsheba's husband, who was a soldier, to be put in a place in the battle where he'd be killed. And his death did in fact take place. David then married Bathsheba, thinking that it's all covered up now. He's taken care of this whole thing. No one will ever know. But that isn't what happened. And God sends Nathan the prophet to King David to tell him. God knows exactly what David did, everything from the sin with Bathsheba all the way to having Uriah killed in battle and all of those things. And there's a passage here where Nathan says this, the prophet says this to King David. He says, "Now therefore the sword shall never depart from thine house, because thou hast despised me and hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be thy wife." And there's a phrase in here that I thought was interesting. Thou hast despised me. The interesting thing about that is because the Bible tells us that David was a man after God's own heart. The Bible tells me that David loved God, and there can be no question that he loved God. But in this instance, the actions of King David caused God himself to say that David had despised him. Now, if God could say concerning King David that he despised God, is there any of us that wouldn't be guilty of that very same thing? We love God, and we show it. Many of us, we love God, and we show it in a great many ways. But at the same time, we despise God, and we just demonstrate that too through acts of sin. Well, how did David get himself to this place where this love-hate relationship is going on? He loves God, but at the same time he loves God, he's proving that he hates God. How did he ever get himself in that kind of place? Well, first of all, he got there because he took it easy when he should have been engaged in work. His work, of course, was warfare, and he took a day off. He took a season off. He took a break when he should have been at work, and that break was the first step in causing him trouble. You and I, we need to recognize this. God created us to work, and whenever we spend too much time in leisure, you can guarantee we're going to get ourselves in trouble in doing that. And so David took a break when he should have been at work. The second thing that he did is he acted on temptation. There are things in this life that are just going to tempt us. The problem isn't that we've been tempted. The problem is when we give in to the temptation, when we act upon the temptation. David acted on the temptation. The third thing was that after he had committed his sin, then he tried to cover up that sin. Of course, he did it in a terrible, terrible way by having Uriah killed in battle, ordering his death, ordering him essentially to be put in a place in the battle where he would be certainly killed. And so he attempted to cover up his sin. By the way, he didn't cover it up. He may have made it so that people didn't know about it, but God knew. And be sure your sin will find you out. And then the final thing that I noticed he did is he failed. In this downward spiral that led to where God says, "You've despised me." The final thing that I see is that he failed to immediately confess his sin, realizing his sin. Rather than covering it up and doing what he did to Uriah, he should have fessed up to it. Now, I understand if he had fessed up to it, there would have been some incredible consequences, but there were anyway. He failed, he got himself into a position where God said, "You've despised me," because he didn't confess his sin immediately. And after Nathan the prophet comes to him, David does confess. That's in Psalm 51, and David does confess his sin, and God corrects it. So though there were some terrible, terrible consequences for his sin, the fix for all of this was Psalm 51 and confession, pouring his heart out, pouring a broken and contrite heart out to God. And by the way, that's the fix for you and me as well. I'm Marvin McKenzie, and I'm the pastor of Bible Baptist Church in Puyallup, Washington. I'm glad you've come today to see this video. Trust it'll be a blessing to you.